going to your comment, I think it was Daniel said that like we can't, just one person can't do it, but I feel that we actually can a lot. A lot of us can still push it a little bit in our own departments. And I did a film in Winnipeg a few years ago called Bed Rest, and um, I knew I had already been on the National DGC Sustainability Committee and been having conversations such as this. And I thought, okay, this is a chance to kind of let's do it from the ground up. So, as my department got hired and stuff, we had a big meeting and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I mean, I'm the one that said that, let's do this, but everyone was on board. The construction coordinator I had was had been wanting to do that for years, but had never kind of been encouraged to do it. Anyway, everyone was on board. So basically we planned our exit at the outset, like before we even started designing, before we started like doing anything. It was like we'd have to keep in mind that we have to get rid of this stuff at the end because it was a one-shot film. It's a $12 million feature, and it wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to go into a series or another season or anything like that. So it was just an approach that we all embraced. And so whether it was the drafting became completely modular, and just as an example, like we were matching to an exterior location, and the windows I think were like maybe 3'7" wide. It was an old period house, but we just made them all 4 feet. You won't notice this on camera. So we just standardized the construction, the drawing of construction as much as possible. We rented things. We rented subfloor. So in fact, that's something, Scott, just to think about, perhaps in the future with your studios, maybe putting a subfloor in just off the bat might be great, because then other shows don't have to use it and pull it up and put it down. So anyways, there was a warehouse in Winnipeg where a producer had stored lots of things from previous shows, including stacks and stacks of subfloor. And so we rented it from him, and we rented many other things from him and bought things from secondhand stores. And anyway, if you just go through a few, we'll go back to the green goals and stuff, but I think the very first picture shows, anyway, here's the picture of the modular sets, which it just looks like a set. It's normal. We all build 4x8 flats, 4x10 flats, but we just kind of pushed it. So there was very few filler flats that had to go to landfill in the end. The very first picture kind of shows the big room that it was the main set, and the walls had to shake and all this kind of stuff. But again, from the outset, we just said we are going to do this as sustainably as possible. And even like as walls started going up, one of the carpenters knew he had another show to go on to, so he was already putting his name on many of the flats. And another example, just looking at the picture here, the roof, the ceiling panels were actually a 95% recycled material that we bought. Actually, it had to come from Ontario, but it was still cheaper than the local non-recycled material. And someone bought those as well from us. So trying to find suppliers that are also creating sustainable products is also important, whether it's paint or whether it's lumber, FSC lumber, or whether it's paper. You can, as designers and construction people, we can make that shift as well. You just go the next slide, wherever it shows the metrics, just kind of gives a little kind of impressive. This part here, a green goals, that one, the previous. Yeah. So again, the main criteria was use modular circular design. That was all right from the outset. We were all embracing that. We designed for the disassembly. So the construction coordinator said, okay, we'll use screws as much as possible rather than glue to glue things together. I understand, and Joe will probably tell you that you can't always avoid glue, but we did as much as possible. So that disassembly, yes, it took a bit of time, but things didn't have to get shredded into bits to disassemble them. We did rely on some sustainable supplies and suppliers, and we didn't even really think about single-use products. It wasn't germane to what our project was. But the fabulous thing was, look at the green outcomes. We had 60% recovery of our materials and assets for reuse. So that was either because another show bought the flats, or we just gave them. Again, it's like part of it's the money-making thing, but if you look at the bottom line, we could save money. And we also had a 30% reduction of the typical bins and tipping fees. So that's a savings right there. And we actually made about $5,000 in cash because of people buying things. And the producer, Carl Irving in Winnipeg, who has the warehouse, we did a bit of barter with him. So the things we rented from him, he maybe got stuff back from our show as an exchange. But there was an overall savings in manpower and materials. And the producer, or the line producer on the show, was a man from LA, and he'd done huge shows like Jurassic Park, like really major American shows, and he was doing a smaller independent film with some friends who had the company. And I went to him at the start of the project and just said, "This is what I'd like to do." And he goes, "I don't care as long as it doesn't cost me more money," and it didn't. We ultimately kind of saved a bit of money. So the point being, if you put your minds to it, it didn't take all that much more prep, if any, because I went in with this in my mind, and we all kind of had a meeting in the art department. Everyone was on board, and we just proceeded accordingly. And I just think it's not brain surgery. If I can do it, like anyone could do it. There's a lot of smarter people than me out there in the business. I just have a lot of hope that this can shift. So that's kind of my little blurb. And I think case studies are a helpful thing because it's kind of it's almost a tactile example of what one can achieve.